It's way past time I dispense some indiscriminate justice!
G'day guys, Duckville here. We're going to have a very cool replay here, probably one of the first times that I've ever casted a game that is actually containing all of the units from both races will be featured in the game. As you can probably see from the timer on YouTube, it is quite a long game. I know that some of you actually have a bit of an aversion to longer games, but this one is definitely worth watching. It's very cool. From what I've read in the comments, this is essentially a cold cast. I did a really quick skim over the replay. I actually sort of hid in the corner and just sort of watched the minimap, and that was about it, and it looks freaking amazing. So hopefully this will be what it is, what I've just worked it up for. I've hyped it up like In Control, announcing some announcements of announcements and that sort of thing. So this should be pretty cool. Let's get into it. We do have a red Zerg down here in the bottom right corner of Typhon Peaks. He is named GooDNighT, and he's a player who's on the Korean ladder. I'm sort of a bit, sort of, you know, worried about referring to points and positions and that sort of thing at the moment, because of course this is a new season with new rankings and all that sort of stuff, and players haven't really evened out too much just yet. But seems to have a decent grasp of the game, of course, being on the Korean ladder and being decently placed for where he is at the moment. His opponent, of course, this blue Protoss, who is actually all the way up the top here on the opposite corner, not the opposite cross corner, but vertical corner is up the top. It is a blue Protoss. His name sort of comes out, it was a bit of an adventure like Lord of the Rings or something like that to find this guy's name. It sort of comes out as, it's actually got his name at the end, and then there's something like Roast at the front, but I'm actually going to call him Lost, as directed by Mr. Docs on Twitter. Thank you very much for helping me out with that. And he is also a very decent player. I believe he actually had some replays that were up on Gosu Gamers a little while ago, where he did some cool things with Archon toilets before the Archon toilets were removed. So we are going to see what happens here today. GooDNighT here, getting the spawning pool up, and the extractor, of course, probably just going to go for some sort of Zergling expand. It is actually a little bit of an interesting differential these days, where previously you would actually see Zerg players actually get a lot of like a really fast Zergling speed. Actually, he is going to do it, but it's not as common to see this sort of opening these days, because speed is actually, it's sort of being worked out. It does happen in games, of course, when players have been playing them long enough. You work out when you need to actually get things. Some of the Zerg players have sort of realized that you don't exactly need Zergling speed straight off the bat. You can delay it a little bit. Like this this here is your pretty quick speedling expansion sort of style, and of course it's not always the best idea to get that, depending on how you want to go. If you want to get some quick tech, you can save the gas from building the Zergling speed and use it for something else. So we'll see what happens here, but it looks as if we're getting a standard opening from Lost. I will be calling him Lost. I don't know if I actually said that, but he's just going for a standard sort of opening here, getting a Stalker out first, which does tend to sort of lean towards that there may be some sort of early pressure. You can sometimes see, oh no, he's actually going to go for a Stargate, so we're actually going to have some sort of Stargate pressure here, perhaps getting out a couple of Void Rays to handle any roaches that may pop out from GooDNighT, and we'll see if he does get those up and running shortly. We'll probably see the Roach Warren go down if that is the case, but as we can see here, got a Creep Tumor already up and running. He's going to get that down to the natural expansion here, which is always very good for the Zerg players out there. Make sure you're getting your creep going as soon as possible, and as we do see, the Lings do have their speed, so they're going to run around the map, controlling the map quite well, and they do, of course, have a little bit of a bonus over Stalkers. They can take out Stalkers quite effectively, and of course they can deal with the Zealots when they are in greater numbers, just like the Sand People. But we have a gateway going down. This does look to be some sort of, yeah, I'd say this is going to be maybe a 1 or 2 Void Ray timing push, just to see if he can catch GooDNighT off guard and perhaps kill a Queen, of course, if he can kill a Queen, or even 2 if they come to defend, because of course the only Zerg anti-air is the Queen in the initial stages, although we do have an Evo chamber here from GooDNighT, so he's going to get that up. Maybe going to put down a couple of Spore Crawlers just to make sure he's adequately defended, along with the fact that he also has an extra Queen down here at the natural as well. The bonus queens are going to be really good because it will provide him with the ability to set up some more creep chimmers, which is always good. As we mentioned, creep chimmers providing vision along with the creep, which helps out the ground-based units. Void Ray is out now, so we do have Lost trying to move out here. He has been surrounded with these Zerglings. They are coming in for a kill, and they will get this Stalker, perhaps some other units, but no, brilliant little block there with the warping in Zealot there, and the Void Ray finishes off the rest of these units. Luckily, he saved those sentries there. If you lose those early sentries, it is really hard for a Protoss to actually get back into it and do any sort of early pressure. As we mentioned, we're probably going to see some sort of early pressure, but he has stopped the Void Rays for the moment, so he's just going to sit with one just for the moment. So he's probably just going to make sure this expansion gets up nicely. Of course, the whole point of the Void Ray there is to make sure that you can hold off any early roaches that may come at you. Of course, there are some sorts of rushes that can come at you. Of course, we do have a few out now. The other bonus of the Stargate there, of course, is this Phoenix, which is flying around, giving great intel that we do see here. And he does know that the Roach Warren is here. He knows that there is an extra hatchery, which is very Brood War-esque to put the hatchery down there at the ramp. And he will, of course, be able to fly around the map and do a little bit of harass on any stray overlords that are around the map. So we do have Lost now moving out here, taking this expansion. Probably see some probes transferred down in just a second. I believe he's a little bit busy microing that Phoenix that was floating around, or perhaps this Void Ray, I'm not really sure. But there goes one probe, and there's some more. There we go. So he's finally transferring the probes over. He's going to get this natural expansion saturated quite nicely here, and he's going to get another gas up and running. So we'll see if he does go for any sort of attack. We do have the Void Ray still floating around here. I would say that that GooDNighT may have actually seen that. We just heard the funky little voice of the Void Ray captain, or whatever he is, floating in there. So he has come in from Aya. The robotics facility is done. We'll probably see a quick observer pop out just in. And what I would really like to see is just some map control trying to be taken back for our Protoss player Lost. If he can run around, perhaps snipe out a few of these creep chimmers just to make sure that his opponent doesn't have free reign of the map with the creep chimmers, and of course it gives a really big bonus to the roaches as well. So both players currently sitting on around about 67 supply. Of course our Zerg player will probably be a little bit higher in the worker count. He is indeed currently sitting on 44 to the total of 40 of Lost. Now these Zerglings just sitting around here, just hanging out, making sure they can spot perhaps anything that comes out the back of the base, but I don't believe he'd be really too worried about spotting anything. He knows exactly what Lost is up to with his tech and knows exactly how many expansions he's got for the moment, but what he does not know is that there is a robotics bay over here, which is probably going to get the extended thermal lance out for the Colossus, and that will definitely get some sort of death ball started for our Protoss player. Of course, a lot of the problems that we have for Zerg is when you get a lot of Colossus and these Void Rays out. We do see the powerful one Phoenix, one Void Ray combo coming together here, sniping out one, no, not sniping out either of these Queens here. They did survive for quite a while there, did cause a lot of damage to that Void Ray Phoenix combo, and they have survived. There was probably a transfusion off this particular Queen. She is quite low on energy, although this one's quite high as well, but either way, nothing really too severe done there. The Zergling poking in to see what is happening at the front of the base, knocks on the door, and the Void Rays say get out, and he does see that the Forge is there going with the +1 spinning up. So we'll see what GooDNighT has to reply to that particular style of play. Check this out. We actually have upgrades galore on the way for our Protoss player. We do have this Phoenix just running around causing a little bit of mischief, just checking out what is going on. He does have a lot of energy inside there. Perhaps if we can get another Phoenix out, that might help him with taking out a few drones perhaps, but I'm not sure. It looks as if Lost is actually going to go for the straight up for that death ball there with the Void Ray Colossus combo. With the, as we can see, the air weapons is on the way, +1 to ground weapons is on the way, along with the extended thermal lance. So this is going to be straight into a very powerful, it's obviously a very powerful laser ball that will come out of our Protoss player. Once he's got perhaps a couple more units, he'll be able to poke around and see what he can do to the Zerg. We do have our one Zergling just popping in here, seeing that the expansion, the third expansion here is up on the way for Protoss. We do have some mutas coming along. They are going to try and fly in and see what they can do, but there are a couple of cannons here at the natural expansion. They will be able to take some shots at those pylons there, but the Phoenix coming along attempting to deny that. Now we'll probably see a little bit of a little attack here from our Zerg player. He is coming through the side there. Not really sure what the target is here. Here it is. It's the rocks at the expansion. Not really sure if he's going to be able to get this down in time before the defense comes along. And there it is. The cannons and the Void Ray combo are going to be able to hold off any sort of attack on this expansion, which is going to be really good for Lost. If he can hold that, he can get some get a powerful economy going and then start powering out those massive units, of course being the Colossus and the Void Rays, which are really going to give him a huge advantage in this match. But we will have a quick look at the Zerg base. Let's see what GooDNighT is up to. He's got a few Corruptors on the way. There they are, a couple of them. They look exactly like the Sentinels from the Matrix, if anyone remembers what they look like. And he does have some upgrades on the way. He's got Roach Speed on the way. We've got the Ground Carapace level 1 is on the way, along with... Did I see? No, I didn't. There is another Evo Chamber on the way, though, so he will be getting a couple more upgrades, along with the Hydra Den. We'll probably see this Hydra Den just pop down in a second, but it looks as if he's a bit busy attempting to harass this third expansion. This third expansion, as I said, is quite quick there, and if he can actually get some harass on that, he will be in a great position, but letting a Protoss take that third quite quickly without punishing it is a little bit of a detriment to the Zerg player. We do have some Phoenix running around now. These guys, of course, can move while they shoot, so it is very cool to watch. We'll probably see them do some barrel rolls while they are shooting. But they are going to pick up a Queen, take some shots at the Queen. The Mutas coming in to try and defend the cancel on the Graviton beam there. Very good micro there from our Protoss player. The Queen still having shots at the Phoenix to try and pick off what she can. But the Mutas now finally flying back in. The Corruptors also on the way. But of course, unlike the Phoenix, the Corruptors do have to stop to shoot. So they are at a bit of a disadvantage there. Phoenix, meanwhile, flying around. We're going to see if they can actually find out what is going on the map. We do have the Zergling here hidden in the grass, just actually being able to see what's going on across all of this side here in the middle there. If he can take this one over across to this side, he'll have a great advantage with the vision on the map. Now, as we mentioned, Creep Chim is providing a lot of vision here, of course, covering this little secret hallway there, providing him with any vision of if these rocks start to go down, and he'll know that an attack may be on the way if that is the case. But our Protoss player, meanwhile, let's just have a look at what he can see. He's got some buildings here, just sort of semi-blocking off this side of the rocks, and we'll see if he actually decides to go through there. I'm not sure if he actually will, but that's about all the vision that he has for the moment. Of course, the Mutalisks and the Corruptors providing some really great air defense, of course, which will limit the usage of the Observers. I believe there are a couple of Overseers out. Are there anywhere around? I don't know, but there are the Spore Crawlers as well, which are, of course, going to snipe down any Observers that come their way. Now, the rocks have been broken down by Lost. We'll see if he actually attempts to go through them, but he does look like he's going to have to deal with a counter-attack over at the side here. A lot of Zerglings, Corruptors, and Mutas and Roaches are all trying to bust down this door here. Little Pig let me in, and they do come through. Corruptors are going to need to provide some air defense against those Phoenix, because they will lift up any of the leftover Roaches. But the Phoenix, of course, will do great damage to the Mutalisks as well. Shit is getting serious. Here we go. Let's check out this battle here. The Corruptors are sort of whittling down those Phoenix along with the Void Rays, but the Void Rays are still powering up all of their laser beams and that sort of thing. Stalkers, meanwhile, taking a lot of damage from these from the Zerglings as well. Corruption finally being put down by those Corruptors, causing the Void Rays to take a little bit extra damage. But the problem now is that the Void Rays have no counter in the air from our Zerg player. Blink finally being researched there and all done and being utilized there. Brilliant defense there by our Protoss player. He just sort of held off what he could and then let the Void Rays go to town on all of those units. So a little bit of a resupply will be needed here by our Zerg player, GooDNighT. He's way back. He's powering straight back up to 159 supply. So he's certainly not in any terrible position after losing most of that army, but of course he has expanded. He's now got 4 bases, and he'll probably look to take a 5th, I would assume. One of these two would be best, probably this one, I would say. And if he can get a 5th expansion up, he'll still be in a good position. The problem that he has is that his harass and his that main attack that we just saw has not caused any sort of damage to the Protoss economy. And as we can see on the income tab, we have the Harvesters actually even for the moment, which is quite interesting to see. We do have another attack here. The Void Rays, Stalkers, and one Colossus at the back. One lonely Colossus trying to take on this very heavy Roach Hydra army. And it looks as if the Roach Hydra army may be successful here. The Void Rays have been taken out along with the Colossus, and there's only the Stalkers left. Stalkers doing a little bit of micro. You do have Blink. I don't know why he's not using it, but the Roaches are now powering through here. There are a couple of cannons to defend, but it's certainly not going to be enough for the moment. But more Stalkers have been warped in. As we mentioned, a very strong economy from our Protoss player, providing him with the ability to actually power up all of his units very quickly. Now we do see this is going on all sorts of sides of this natural expansion there. We've mentioned that there are the extra entries. I'll be a bit surprised if Zerg hasn't actually taken out the rocks just yet, but we'll have a look in a second. Stalkers finally coming in here to the aid of the base, taking out a lot of these roaches, and there's only the Zerglings and Hydras left, but there are certainly a lot of them. There we go, Colossus coming out off the side, and we'll see if he can fend this off. He may lose some of these gateways. These Hydras are in a perfect position to take some of them out. We do see on the supply tab that we have our Protoss at 93 supply. GooDNighT currently sitting at 142 roughly. He is losing a lot of his units here. The Colossus still hanging around the back. Great micro to keep that out of danger from the Hydras, but I think that attack is now all over. But let's check out the casualties. We do have, of course, I believe that was 2 gateways that were taken down by our Zerg player GooDNighT, so he's done a great job there, taking out a couple of those. Obviously, it's not a huge loss for our Protoss player loss, but it's certainly something that will hit him just a little bit in his resupply of his units. And we do have another attack here at this 4th expansion up the top. Some Zerglings coming along, the Hydras as well, and the Roaches coming through to try and take out this Nexus. I do not believe there is any way that Lost will actually be able to defend this. He's sending some probes along. The probes are certainly not going to be able to defend that, and the Nexus does go down. So we do have a counter-attack perhaps coming through the middle here. These rocks are going to go down quite quickly there. The destructible rocks being shot to pieces by the Colossus and the Stalkers that are currently sitting here. We'll see if he pushes through. He doesn't look like he's going to. What I'd really love to see is an observer popping out just to make sure he can take out some of these creep tumors. As we mentioned before, really don't want to let your Zerg player that you're playing against get this much map control with the creep tumors that are spreading around the map. Of course, it can't really spread too much further than where this one is now, but it's still providing him with the ability to see what is going on. As we can see, he's got the full coverage of this hallway there, along with the middle over here, and if that's going to provide him with a distinct advantage, so he can actually keep his army in good position to make sure he can defend against any sorts of pushes that may come through. But it doesn't look like Lost is actually going to go through with this attack. He does have some more upgrades on the way. He may be just waiting to see if he can get this one up. This is weapons level 3, so they're certainly going to be doing a lot of damage, all these Stalkers and the Colossus. I almost said Corruptors there. They don't look like Corruptors at all. Maybe if you turn them on the side they do. But we've got a DT down here in the 4th base of GooDNighT. It is hacking up a lot of these drones. This DT has 4 kills. He's going to rack up probably a few more. I'd say at least 6 more before he actually gets poked at by this spine crawler. In fact, he'd probably take out all of these drones here. No response just yet from our Zerg player. He's finally sending down some roaches. They are coming through. There was a little bit of a skirmish up here, but it is very much inconsequential to what is happening here at this particular base. This observer is still hanging out here. As I said, I'd love to see this observer flying around, actually providing some anti-creep tumor defense, but he's not really up for that just at the moment. 4th base back up and running for Lost. He's got a couple of cannons here to defend this time. He's got 5 cannons in total, which won't stop any massive attack, but it'll certainly disrupt it for a short time. And Corruptors in great numbers here, providing a lot of damage to these Colossus, and the Hydras and the Roaches are certainly going to do a great job if they can get in there, but the angles just weren't good enough for Zerg to attack into. Really does not want to come into this choke point here, which will provide a great favor to the Protoss player, who, if he can get in, he'll be able to actually just snipe off all of the units that try and come through there. Meanwhile, the still not really too much harass going on. I sort of want to see a little bit more harass from GooDNighT. He's certainly taking bases at a great pace, which is awesome to see, but he's still not really harassing too much. I want to see something, you know, we got an Overlord up here. Why not chuck down a Nidus Worm just so he can power in a few units? Of course, we do have the massive defense force making me look like a fool right there, but the Overlord is going to go down. There it is. It gets splashed apart there. DT spotting this army, which is coming through the middle here. This DT will probably get picked off. He's running away from this army, which is chasing him. As we can see, you can see the invisible mark that's left by the invisible units, of course. Where's a good example? Here's a good example. You do see a tiny little sort of there's a little bit of a differential in the actual the vision there, but it's definitely something you can spot if you are keeping a sharp eye out. But he does have an overseer, of course, which is going to provide him with the detection ability, which will let him see those DTs if they are running around the map rampantly. And we do have, what have we got? Some more pylons going up. We've got Void Ray still being produced by Lost. He's going to power up that Death Ball. As we mentioned, the Colossus Void Ray Death Ball, still quite powerful. What I would really start to think is the next step for GooDNighT, apart from these Broodlords, which are going to morph in a short moment, is some Infestors. Infestors have been buffed, of course. This is a new patch, of course. Everyone should know that by now with all these fancy tools which we have. Of course, we can check out the APM. Nothing really too fancy happening on the APM tab. For those of you who sort of complain about your APM being low, check it out. This for this short moment here, we do have it starting to pick up there from Lost, but as I mentioned, Infestors providing a great deal of damage to any sorts of units that are armored, of course. They do a bonus amount to armored units, and check out this army. This is essentially an armored unit army. So we'll see what happens here. The Broodlords coming inside here, going to need to be very careful with those. Only a few Corruptors out now that the Corruptors had to be morphed. Brilliant force fields there by Lost. He's going to be able to take control of this battle, I would say, and rip apart all of the Roaches Hydras that were stuck inside of the force fields there. And he's finally taken out a lot of those ground units, and the Broodlords are left over thinking, where are my bros? And their bros are definitely dead. These guys late to the party, but they're going to be destroyed perhaps. We'll see if he comes inside. But all of that just being obliterated there by Lost with this very powerful army. He does have +1 to armor. He's got +3 to weapons, of course. And that's going to provide him with a lot of damage against these Broodlords, which are armored themselves. So that means that the Stalkers will do the extra damage that they have against them as well. Ultralisk haven't done here. One Ultralisk on the way and a few Infestors, which I am very happy to see. The extra armor being evolved there at the Ultralisk Cavern for the Ultralisk gaining the extra +2 to their armor, which is also very cool, of course. It does mean, of course, that they do take the extra damage from anti-armor units, which are the Stalkers and the Immortals for the Protoss. Of course, well, that's a couple of the examples there. Of course, the Void Rays do a little bit of bonus as well, and Void Rays are, of course, a fantastic combo, fantastic counter, sorry, against Broodlords and the Ultralisks once they do pop out. So we'll probably see that Lost will get a few more Void Rays on the way. Now we do have GooDNighT actually pumping up a couple more bases here. He's got this 5th, which has been going quite nicely, gaining a 6th here, and then I would not say this 7th is too far off. He's probably going to plonk that one down shortly. We will see if he sends some drones over there. Let's just have a quick look at his tech. He does have a +3 to armor, is all done. As we can see, this Queen, she's happy with her +4 to armor. The Roaches here have the +2, the level 2 ground range weapons, sorry. So they will be doing a heap of damage there, of course. Meanwhile, the Protoss army moving into position here. He's probably moving in, maybe wants to have a look and see if he can take out some of these Roaches. Got to be careful though, those Infestors are there, and as we said, a few fungal growths will absolutely decimate this army if he can pull it off. The other bonus of fungal growth being that it can actually stop your Stalkers from blinking, so there can be no blink micro there. Fungal growth going off on top of the Stalkers on the side there, and these Void Rays, of course. The Broodlords are still firing off at the Stalkers when they can, but it looks as if the Protoss army still maybe just enough to hold off this attack here in the middle there. This massive battle taking place there. The couple of Broodlords still providing a lot of damage here. One Colossus went the wrong way. He didn't see the D2 sign that meant he had to go through the top. Gets picked off quite easily there by those many spine crawlers that are hanging around. I would say that was, you know, not a great battle for Zerg, but it certainly was a huge detriment to the army of Lost. Of course, we see that his Stalker count has been greatly reduced. A lot of Colossus were lost there as well. Let's have a quick look at the units lost tab. 319 in total for GooDNighT, and 144 there for our Protoss player lost, and pretty much on the same scale in the actual resources lost, as you can see. But we'll see if either of these players can pull one sort of some sort of punch out which will actually take out their opponent. But it just looks as if GooDNighT is actually quite happy to turtle up in the middle here, putting down a lot of static defense. We got the spore crawlers, the spine crawlers, all sorts of crawlers running around the map, Ultralisks have now been starting to pop out in great numbers. There's a whole 6 infestors on the way as well, so there's certainly a lot of power in this Zerg army, which is going to be collecting in the middle there with Hydras, all sorts of things streaming in from each of these various bases. What we would want to see perhaps is some of these upgrades getting finished off, and it does look as if GooDNighT is going to go for the +2 to weapons, the melee attack for those ground units. Of course, the Ultras will do a lot of damage. They do splash damage, of course, as well. And we'll see if he gets some other upgrades on the way. He does have pathogen glands, which increases the starting energy of the infestors, which will mean that these infestors can pop out and will be able to do, I think is it 2 or is it 3 fungal growths? I'm not actually sure, but they will be able to do some extra fungal growths. Meanwhile, just over here, this Protoss army is poking around, taking out some rocks. He may just want an easy path to head through down to this base if he does need to attack through there, but he won't just for the moment. I think our Protoss player Lost is actually a little bit more focused on getting this particular base up and running. Expansion number, is that number 6, or it's base number 6, but expansion number 5, however you want to do it. I think I switch up my terminology sometimes. But if he can get that 5th base up, he'll be in a good position. This has been a very passive game from both players in a general sense. Both these guys not really too fast. This is not a good position for the Protoss, for the Zerg, sorry, being funneled into this sort of area here. However, if some Fungals can get off on top of these units here, these are all armoured units for our Protoss player. If he can get some Fungals off, this will be a huge, huge battle for Zerg. It does start to come through here. It is getting serious. There we go. Ultras being picked off, though. I just don't think there's enough for Zerg to actually come inside. And some infestors being used with the neural parasite there, taking out one of these Colossus, which is actually doing a fair bit of damage here, starting to attack these cannons. I'm a bit surprised that this Colossus isn't actually attacking the infestor, which is a little bit annoying for Protoss, but see some Stalkers coming inside here, cleaning up the rest of those Brood Lords along with the infestors and Hydras. So another little battle there. Once again, just sort of this theme so far that GooDNighT has been having is he'll go into these battles, he'll certainly take out a lot of the Protoss units, but just can't capitalize on his position there, losing essentially everything he has himself, and the Protoss is just able to reinforce just in time, which is of course probably one of the big advantages of having Protoss in this sort of mid to late game, is that there are going to be a lot of gates. Let's count up the gates. We got 5 over here. We've got a couple more inside the base. That's 6 in total. 7, 8, 9, 10. We've got, let's just say there's a lot of gates. There's a whole heap of gates out at the moment, along with a few Stargates, of course, still producing Void Rays, staying on top of that macro, which is fantastic. Check out the timer, guys. We are at 38 minutes into this game, and both of these guys still doing a fantastic job on their macro. We've got our Protoss currently sitting at around about 400 minerals and a few hundred gas, and our Zerg player is sort of, because he's maxed out, of course he can't spend his own, but that is one of the powers of the Zerg, is that you can lose some of these units and then power them straight out. But it looks as if GooDNighT is on a little bit of a roll here, taking out those Templar along with the Colossus, and that is going to give him a little bit of an advantage. What I would love to see is him actually push across here and try and take out some of these bases. Surely he knows that these are actually here. Let's have a quick look. He doesn't actually just yet. He doesn't know that they are there. I think it would be safe to assume that he does assume they are there. There it is, a Nidus Worm. Finally pulling that one out of the playbook. It is coming from right in the middle, which is interesting to see. Hydras, Roaches, Ultralisks popping out of here. Want to see some Zerglings, maybe some Queens just for some lols, but certainly enough to take out the most of this base here. He is coming through. I do not think that our Protoss player is too concerned. He's just hanging out here. What main base? I don't really care. He's going to lose this one. It's a couple of Immortals popping out, which may take out this one Ultralisk, and then that'll probably be about it, because there's way too many Hydras on the high ground, pulling out a lot of DPS there. The Ultralisk coming in, and actually losing another one there to this Immortal. Of course, the Immortals do bonus damage to the Ultralisk and take less damage from the Ultralisk, because they do that heavy damage, of course, and the hardened shields get activated like something from Star Wars or something like that. But this main base is definitely going to be taken out. As we were talking about before, a lot of the infrastructure was actually over here for Lost, and now that he's lost, no pun intended, the Stargates and of course a lot of these gateways that were sitting up here, he's going to need to rebuild them, and it looks as if he is doing so over at this 6th base, and he's going to get a few gates up here, Cybernetics core, which is going to be needed of course to make some more units, and he'll probably need to make some more pylons. As we can see on the tab here, he is in the red at the moment, so he's certainly got some building to do. We'll see if GooDNighT can make a little bit more of an advantage here out of this situation. He does have the bottom half of the map. Check this out. We've got this base is all taken, secure. I would say this base is quite secure as well. And these few bases here down at the starting position have been mined out, well, except for the main. That's really a bit weird that he's left that much there. But third base is now being taken out for our Zerg players, removing this base of Lost, and of course that removed the DT tech, which, to be quite honest, I don't think it's a massive disadvantage for our Protoss player. He may rebuild it, but I'll sort of be surprised if he rebuilds it straight away. There's sort of some more important things to take care of, but he certainly does have a huge army here in the middle. We have +3 to armor, +3 to weapons, and that is a lot to contend with for our Zerg player. He may get sandwiched in here, being caught inside the base of Lost here. He's going to probably lose most of these units. The Hydras are going to need to take out the Void Rays if they can. Archons coming in here. Of course, the Archons do massive damage to all of the bio units, doing, I think it's 43 damage, and that's splash damage against all bio units in the late game. That is fantastic, of course, to have those Archons. We don't see enough of them. A little bit of blink micro, I don't know what that was for, but we do see all of that army being taken out there. And as you can see on the supply count here up the top, we've actually got 186 for going straight back up to 200 for GooDNighT. Of course, that powerful Zerg mechanic that we mentioned that you can just power straight up. And our Protoss is currently sitting on 147. So current situation for these guys is that they're going to really need to start being a little bit more efficient with their various mineral usage. Of course, this means for late game as a Protoss, you want to start perhaps getting a few more Templar, making sure you don't lose them. If you start losing Templar late game, you're going to be in a world of hurt. And perhaps some more careful Void Ray usage. And Archons, as we mentioned before, were great units to use against Zerg because of their bonus to bio, their massive splash damage, and of course, being Zerg, you're going to have a lot to contend with if someone is splashing against you. And that is probably the path that he'll need to take. But for our Zerg player, a lot of these power units will be quite useful, and he's going to need to be careful with them. I know he is quite heavy on the minerals and the gas count at the moment, given that he's had this 6th and the 7th base for quite a long time. Keep in mind, this isn't fully saturated, but he's just going to start to need to be a little bit more careful with how he uses his units. Of course, I'd love to see some infestors, a lot more infestors pop out. If he can produce a lot of infestors, you can do things like the neural parasites, chuck some neural parasites down on these immortals, the Void Rays, even the Templar. If you can pull it off on the Templar, that is definitely something to go up on SC Legacy's Pimpers plays. If you can neural parasite some Templar and then put some storms down, that it would be actually quite hilarious. But we got some changelings coming in here. Let's have a look at what they can see. They do see that this very big ball is there, and they get taken out straight away. Lost, making sure that he's not letting any stray units inside his base. Let's just have a quick look at his situation for the moment. Actually, no, we won't, because we do have an attack coming in here from GooDNighT. It looks as if he's got a whole heap of Broodlords there. I think that's around about 12 Broodlords sitting in a formation there, like a flock of geese or something like that. Storm going down from the Templar. This is going to be a very important battle here. If Lost can actually hold off, this would be very good, because he's going to take out a lot of this Zerg supply. And it looks as if he may be able to hold it out, because there is nothing to counter these Void Rays. We still don't have any sorts of counters to stop the Void Rays, and if Lost can actually switch the Void Rays across to take care of the Broodlords, that'd actually be fantastic. But it looks as if he's very busy with microing these Stalkers here, microing them back, taking out a lot of those Ultralisks that were running around, and the Ultralisks now coming back. They've had enough of that particular game, and the Void Rays now cleaning up the rest of those Broodlords. As I mentioned, this base is now being saved quite easily, and this base may in fact stay up, or perhaps we're going to see if he could save this one. If he could save it, it'll be a great help to him, and he does indeed. So great little battle there, and great defense by Lost. He's held off all of those units there. Ooh, you want to pull back all of those guys. You don't want them running in empty-handed. And just a great defense there, using the blink, powerful, very powerful skill of the Protoss there on the Stalkers, making sure that they don't go down to the cleaving attacks of the Ultralisks, and of course the Void Rays taking care of all of those Broodlords that were in the skies, causing a lot of damage. Now, we'll see what the next move is for GooDNighT. Of course, as we mentioned, I sort of said he's going to need to be a little bit more careful. What I would like to see is him come across this side. This particular path is going to be a little bit more advantageous for him. Of course, the Protoss army is very, very mobile, given that he's got Blink. He's got a lot of air units, of course, which don't really care about cliffs. But if he can come, if GooDNighT can actually come across this side, perhaps attack into here, take out what he can of this particular side of the map, he'll actually perhaps gain a little bit more of an advantage. But it's starting to look more and more like Lost is going to have a easier time defending than what our Zerg player will have attacking it. But the Hydra is cleaning out a lot of those Void Rays there. A little bit surprised with that micro. Stalker's Blinky on top, attempting to grab a Stalker Donut from Donut King. And they are going to have to be very careful now. Some Ultralisks have come into play, and the Ultralisks are going to force these Stalkers back. They're going to have to use their Blink quite powerfully. Looks as if we had a little bit of a drop there. Sorry about that, we missed that one. But the Hydras now moving inside. The Hydras, of course, do have their +3/3, which is going to give them a lot of armor to help against the Stalker attacks. But they will, of course, take a lot of damage now that these Stalkers have +3 to their weapons as well. +1 to shields is now done. How cool is that? But we will see what the next move is. Of course, as we mentioned before, I'd love to see some more Infestors. Infestors would just rip this apart, chuck some fungal growths down on this sort of ball, and game over. Bob's your uncle. And that is pretty much going to be it. But we got a lot of spine crawlers. Just obviously some static defense, which is another advantage you can have as Zerg. Is that if you're sort of getting too many drones, you can just pop out some spine crawlers, and then you can use that little bit of extra supply. Now, speaking of supply, we're currently sitting at 160 for Zerg. For GooDNighT, currently sitting at 160. A few more units just popping out now. He's getting some Infestors and Hydralisks, of course, but he's sort of got to contend with the fact that Protoss is actually sitting around 144, so he's not really too far off. Nidus Worm coming in the back of this, what is effectively the new main base for Lost, and GooDNighT's going to try and get some units inside if he can here. Ultralisk coming inside. We'll see if he can actually scout out what is coming, because I think we saw something interesting being produced by our Protoss player. Stalkers coming back up the ramp. We'll probably see some more storms going down here. There they are here. Not actually doing too much to the Ultralisks, of course. They really don't do anything at all, but if he can get some feedbacks off on some of the Infestors that might come in, that'll be awesome to see. Archon coming in here, ripping up some of these Ultralisks, which is awesome. And we do have the Stalkers just on the low ground, holding that low ground. The Void Rays in the air, taking out a lot of these units, but we do see that a lot of the Protoss infrastructure, again, has taken a bit of a hit. It hasn't been completely destroyed, but a lot of it has been taken down there. Some Zerglings still inside. Not really sure why Lost hasn't tried to counter these, but he is effectively in defensive mode at the moment. He's going to try and perhaps, if he can, get some harassment off on these sorts of bases. I'd love to see a couple of those Void Rays fly down and take out some of those units there, but it looks as if he's going to have to rebuild effectively what he had. He's going to have to send these probes over. At this stage of the game, of course, where you're nearly mined out, you really don't want to lose probes if you can. If you're still mining your bases, you want to try and keep your probes as alive as much as possible. You don't want to have to spend that extra little bit of resource on rebuilding probes, because of course you need that for your defensive and offensive units. So we'll see what Lost is up to, I'd say, because what I saw there, it is, we do have a carrier being warped in, so we'll see if a carrier can provide some sort of advantage for Lost. Of course, as we mentioned earlier, a bit of a passive game for both players, especially Lost. He's just sort of sat back, waiting for Zerg to attack, and then sort of just countered in a very efficient fashion and taken out a lot of the Zerg units. But we do finally see it's a very small guerrilla force of Zerglings here. They're not guerrillas, it's actually guerrilla force, it's spelt differently, coming in there and just try and take out whatever production buildings he can. Some more Zerglings just flooding in here, so we'll probably see all of this base go down. That's a couple of gateways along with a forge, which is not going to be too much of a hassle, but it certainly may count later on in the game when we get to the stage where every unit and every building counts. So we'll see what Lost is going to do to try and counteract this. He's going to have to contend with a couple of changelings coming in here. Let's see how fast he deals with this. Zerglings coming in, and do they get spotted? No, they don't. So GooDNighT actually has some vision here of what is actually happening with the base here. He sees the carrier, sees that there are a lot of the Stalkers, of course, the more Void Rays popping out, and the Stalkers as well. I think I mentioned Stalkers, I don't know. But those Zerglings that were flooding up the top, the Guerrilla Force being put on hold position there. That's a little bit of a miss micro, but they have been deflected there. The Stalker's blinking along and will easily push them out of the base, and we'll see what GooDNighT's next plan is. He is still running around those Zerglings, so I can see them up on the top of the map, and we'll see right now if he actually gets inside the base. He does get inside, and these Zerglings, as we mentioned, the probes are very important. If he can pick off some of these probes, this would be quite huge, because our Protoss economy is starting to dwindle, as we can see here, spending a lot on things like these carriers and the Void Rays, which are very powerful units, but if he loses them, he will probably have not too much economy to back him up. Now, Zerglings, once again, doing a great job of just running inside, doing a lot of damage, and picking off some of these buildings that were left over because the rest of the Protoss force was back inside that base defending against the other counterattack. So great play here from GooDNighT. We'll see if he can just keep this sort of harass going, and if he can whittle down that big Protoss army, he may have some sort of hope. And now I know I'm saying that, saying he's in a terrible position, but let's be honest, quite right now we've got 1, 2, and I think the main's still got a tiny little bit in it, and that's really about it for GooDNighT, and that's all he's going to have to get to be able to use. Now, he does have a lot of minerals banked up. Of course, he's saving up for his university degree, which he's going to have to pay for because it costs about 55,000 or some ridiculous amount like that. But he really doesn't have any gas coming in. There's just a tiny bit of gas still coming through. These two guys have been exhausted, and these two are the only ones left. So we're coming to that position late in the game where efficiency and effectiveness really does count. Now, it comes to a point where carriers are quite efficient once they have some protective units themselves, and I would say we're going to get to a point here where we're going to see a huge battle in the middle or somewhere around here to see if either of these players can come out with a victory. Now, there is the option of long distance mining some of these minerals which are over here, so keep that in mind, that Lost may actually go for that particular route for getting his economy back up. But we do have a lot of pylons being built here. He's going to need to be very efficient with his pylons as well. You don't want to lose pylons. Once again, this late game stage is where everything counts. You don't want to lose things to little attacks that Zerg can do, as we mentioned with the Zerglings. And we do have, speaking of little attacks, Overlord coming in here, not having a good day, getting picked off straight away, and another one is just floating up here, trying to see what he can do. If he can get inside, drop some of these lings and take out these probes, it would be a great help, but it looks as if the Protoss force is coming in. Now, this is sort of the point where the Protoss arsenal that he has here, carriers, Void Rays, the Colossus, Templar, Stalkers, and some Zealots on the ground as well to provide some meat shielding, is just going to be a lot to contend with for our Zerg player. And we're getting to that point where I think Lost might want to start moving out, perhaps using the carriers and the Void Rays, moving out and trying to take out some of these static defenses, and then he can move around with some of his units and try and take out what is left of the Zerg bases. So we do have, what are we currently sitting at? We're at 120 supply for Zerg and 171 for our Protoss player. So that is getting to quite a bad position for Zerg. He's going to need to, there's really not too much he can do. He's going to start using Queens, I think, is the next port of call. If he maybe produce up a few Queens, he can use a lot of transfusion in the big battle that is inevitably going to occur. And speaking of big battles, check out this little nugget that we've got coming out of here. A mothership is now coming out from Lost. He's saved up his pennies and he's put together enough to buy a mothership that will be coming in soon, and we'll see if the mothership can win the game for our Protoss player Lost. He's certainly in a great position to do that right now. He's got a lot of spore crawlers, which are going to be a bit annoying for the carriers and the Void Rays. Of course, the Corruptors will also be patrolling the skies, making sure that everything is kept in check. But it looks as if we do finally have a little bit of a move out here from these Stalkers. We'll see if Lost can perhaps push in. I did mention we'll probably see if he can get inside and take out some of these static defenses. I'd probably rather see it with some of these higher powered units, but it looks as if he's using them to defend. Of course, the carriers will be great defense against any Broodlords that may come in, but it looks as if the Broodlords are just hanging off to the side here. I think this is that position where GooDNighT is sort of just stuck for what he's actually going to do. He's trying to mine off everything he can. We finally see some drones head back to the main base. It's like migration of trout back to their spawning grounds. They've come back here to the main base to pick up the rest of these minerals that are floating around. but he's, as I said, he's still in a little bit of a troublesome position here. He's going to need to contend with this massive death ball, which is about to be boosted by one of the most powerful units. Brace for the computer to lag, although I hope it doesn't. I sort of got it on lowish settings. There we go, beautiful. Not lagging at all. Thank you, ATI, for that awesome graphics card which I've got. But Protoss units now forming up here. We'll probably see an attack of some kind, although, oh, it looks as if he hasn't actually grouped up that mothership in the rest of the fleet here, or what are we going to call this? I suppose we can call this a battalion of units here from Lost, but we'll see if he takes the mothership with him, or if he may do something Kiwi Khaki style and send his units in to harass and pick off some buildings, and then just use the mass recall to actually pull them all back out of danger if the Zerg actually responds. Now, we do see, as we mentioned, Queens are the big unit of choice for the moment. They've got a lot of energy, so the Queens are certainly going to be a useful tool in the battle, but I just don't think it's actually going to be a sort of an actual favor sort of for GooDNighT. I'm sort of out of words here. We've sort of been going for like 40 minutes in this cast, but we'll see if what Lost is going to do. It looks as if he's chucking down a couple of cannons. I think this is going to be it. He's going to put down these cannons for some static defense. Cannons being extremely powerful buildings, of course. Probably one of the more powerful static defense units in the game. And we'll see if those are going to provide some defense, which they probably will. We've got probes long distance mining off this base here. And once those are all done, which they are now, yeah, I think the mothership's going to stay in base, provide some cloak for the cannons. There we go, picking up some drones which are running around for some reason. And then he's going to move out and perhaps tries to poke in and take out the Zerg forces which are massing up here. He's got a lot of corruptors. Let's just have a quick look at the units tab to see what Lost is going to have to contend with. There are a grand total of 25 Queens. There are 15 corruptors. I would not say that's a huge amount given how many carriers, void rays and stalkers there are, but six roaches, 4 broodlords, 13 hydras, 3 zerglings, and a partridge in a pear tree. So even based off those numbers, that is just not enough for GooDNighT to hold off this sort of attacking force, with, of course, carriers doing the biggest DPS number in the game. When you have their upgrades going, they are quite huge. As we can see, each interceptor doing 8 damage with 2 attacks, so they are quite huge. Now, as you can see, the Protoss forces actually moved down the side here. We'll switch back to the army tab just so you can keep an eye on what is available for these guys. Roaches just checked out to see what is happening here in the main base. I don't think they saw the mothership, so the mothership is definitely going to be used for a recall if Lost actually gets into trouble. Let's just keep an eye on what this army is doing. But the recall, as I said, is probably going to be used if he gets into trouble and if he gets surrounded. That's probably one of the best usages of that particular tool. We don't really see too many players actually using it for warping in, because the trouble with using a mothership to warp your units into someone else's base is that you have to get the mothership in there, and of course that thing is slower than some car from like the 1920s or something like that. So it's not always the best idea to do that. Now, we do have the death ball of Lost moving around the map. Zergling's finding a weak spot in the base of Lost. He's come in here, going to take out the Templar archives. I don't think Lost is actually going to give a crap at all. Taking out a lot of these pylons, which will hurt. Certainly the pylons will hurt because he does have a lot of money backed up, as we can see there. He's going to be able to rebuild them, but I don't think he really want to. Now, the Zerglings coming inside here. A mothership, a storm going down, stopping some of these Zerglings here. A couple of Templar were left over. The probes providing some their own little static defense there. Meanwhile, down at the 6 o'clock position, the Protoss ball is now moving slowly around. It's like just a very slow death march around the map, taking out Zerg bases all over the place, and he's probably going to take the victory, I would assume. There's just no way that GooDNighT can sort of attack into this with a great semblance of hope, and nor can he actually attack into this particular base here. Wow, check that out. Using his, as we mentioned, efficiency. Check that out, building a lot of pylons, getting his supply back into a good position. If he needs to reinforce with, he can essentially only build 9 zealots, and that's about it. But he's also walled off this base from this particular angle, which is really cool. It's something you did see a lot in Brood War, is players would actually use pylons to wall off and try and hold off their aggressors. and make them use another path or a more deadly path. But this sort of late game stage, it is quite interesting to see that. But let's have a look at the units tab. We'll see what is going on. We did actually in GSL. Whoa, actually, hang on. Let's see if the battle occurs here. We are going to get serious in just a second. We're going to have to see some storms. These stalkers not sure where they are going. Neither are the Templars. It is about to get serious. There we go. Storms going down all over the joint. The Templar using up a lot of their energy there, but it seems to have done a lot of damage to those Queens. We'll sort of keep an eye on what the Zerg force is sort of up to here. We've got, here he comes, the Void Rays, the Colossus, the Carriers, everything coming in from the side there. Corrupt is going to do what they can from the skies, taking out a lot of these Carriers here. We do have one of the Carriers going down, the next one, and some Void Rays are going to go down as well. The Queens, meanwhile, doing what they can, but unfortunately for GooDNighT, the Queens are just targeting the Interceptors, which is not the best way to approach this sort of battle here. Trying to use some Transfuse on the Broodlords. The Broodlords, meanwhile, taking out a lot of these ground units here. They are going to dispose of a lot of these Stalkers, but it looks as if the fact that there is realistically no anti-air left over for GooDNighT is going to cause him to lose this game. The Corruptors were taken out quite quickly there once they obviously did take out a lot of the Void Rays and a couple of the Carriers, but there's just not enough there. This looks as if this army is going to just scrape through for Lost. And of course, I think if that battle had have gone just a little bit more in GooDNighT's favor, he may have won, and in fact this may have been a drawn game, but I think this is going to be it. So we will see if these guys sort of play it out a little bit further. There's really not too much that GooDNighT has. He's got a lot of static defense. Maybe if he tries some fancy sort of spine crawler rush, he may be able to come up here and start poking things, but I don't think that is going to work at all, because it'll probably take about 10 years to do. But the the Colossus, sorry, running in here, just sweeping across everything with their Donagi beams, and they are going to clean up the rest of this, and that is effectively going to be that. The Observer's just checking out what's going here at the natural, but that is effectively the game. So great little battle there, just in that end portion there. Nice little bits of micro. I think we did see some micro from both of these players. We saw just how powerful that, if he went straight for that death ball with the Void Rays and the Colossus, going straight into that sort of tech and taking a lot of bases, which is something you don't always see with that sort of style, is that players will sort of just go straight to the Void Ray Colossus and then just start taking bases. Sometimes it'll actually be some sort of harass and then switch into that sort of play. So great little build there from a Lost, and just unfortunate for GooDNighT. As I said, Infestus would have provided him a lot of defensive power there, but that is effectively it, guys. So I'm just going to speed it up so we can just watch what these guys do. I don't actually know if GooDNighT actually left the game. I think he did, because these units aren't poking in at anything. But hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. As I said, I know the game is really long. If you're into the longer games, do stick around on the channel, because I do try and cast some of the longer games so we can see some more of mid to late game styles that obviously these Korean pros sort of imply and utilize. But yeah, I really like to do the longer games. So if you yourself actually have some longer games, make sure you send them through to duckvillelol@gmail.com, and I will do my best to cast them, put them up. We'll have a little bit of analysis perhaps, and we'll see if you yourself can have this kind of very huge epic game that these two players have had. So hope you guys enjoyed that one. I think they're just about to end here. Effectively everything has been taken out. There we go. No, I'm just trying to time it out randomly myself. There you go. Bam. Hope you guys enjoyed that one. Make sure you subscribe, leave some comments, tell all your friends. Make sure everyone has a quick look at this game, because this is a very cool little matchup here between these two players. And I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.